rest. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." It's Friday today. For many, at least when things were normal, it was the end of the work week, the day that begins the weekend, where we take a break from our jobs to do our yard work and our grocery shopping and or all the other things that we need to do. The rest Jesus is talking about here isn't the rest that maybe we think of as we're working for the weekend so we can rest, the rest, relaxation, recreation. That's not the rest Jesus is talking about specifically. He's talking about the rest that was part of God's original creation design, the rest that humanity lost through rebellion, the rest God has been at work, hard work, inviting us to taste now as he is preparing for his people a full and complete rest. See, the Bible talks about rest right from Genesis all the way through Revelation. See, theology nerds, have you ever wondered why in the initial creation account, Genesis 1 and into Genesis 2, there is this pattern of, and there was evening, and there was morning. We see that for the first 6 days of creation, but not the seventh. On the seventh day, there's no evening. It was a day with no end. Genesis 2, verse 2. On the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation, so he rested from all his work. No mention of evening. See, God rested. And what we are to see is that he invited humanity, beginning with Adam and Eve, to live in that rest with him. But Adam and Eve fell from that rest. And we see in Genesis 3, work then became something that was enslaving. See, they were already, one of the commands that they were given before they sinned, before they rebelled against God, one of the commands they were given was to steward the garden, to steward creation. There was work before there was sin. But sin has made work toil, struggle, hard, exhausting. That relationship with God that was meant to be the root of resting was broken. But God brought to Israel the practice of Sabbath, a seventh day, a day where Israel was invited to live as though the ultimate rest had returned, a day of spending time celebrating with others their relationship with God, to not work, to not have to toil, to trust God for provision, celebrating that God was alive and was going to bring one day a full and complete rest. See, the Sabbath practice in the Old Testament was not just one day in 7, but there were Sabbath years. 1 year in 7 where slaves are freed and debts were released and fields weren't to be planted. They were to live off what God would provide, a whole year of living as though the full rest had come. And there was more than just a Sabbath year. There was a Jubilee year. After a Sabbath of a 7 of 7s, 7 years, 7 cycles of 7 years, there was year 49, which was a Sabbath year, and then year 50 was a Jubilee year, another year of rest, where the land would be restored to the original owners, the original families. where provision was completely dependent upon God. See, this is the rest Jesus is talking about. The rest of when the kingdom of God comes in full, when all things are made right and made new, when our relationship with God and with others is forever and fully whole and holy, when our labor is not a burden but joyous, where our relationship with God is understood, it's not about our earning but our receiving and responding. May God bring rest to your soul. And I say this on Friday and encourage you to look ahead to Sunday, a day where for the last 2,000 years we gather together to celebrate what Jesus has done. And in a couple weeks on Sunday, I'm going to talk about Sabbath and the Sunday and what there is for us, people who are living in exile, and what it is that God is calling for us to remember, to celebrate, so that it will give rest for our souls and that we will work from that rest. God bless you today. Amen.